Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Primarily heard on the west coast of the United States, The Whistler, sponsored on the west coast by Signal Oil. This episode goes back to October 22nd, 1945, and the episode entitled One Man Jury.
Signal gasoline. Yes, Signal gasoline is the new gasoline you can prove is superior. The Signal Oil Company and your neighborhood Signal dealer bring you another curious story by The Whistler. Tonight, One Man Jury.
I am the Whistler, and I know many things, for I walk by night. I know many strange tales hidden in the hearts of men and women who have stepped into the shadows. Yes, I know the nameless terrors of which they dare not speak. To the people of Southport, Dan Parcher was more than just a newspaper editor. He was a kind of community conscience. Businessmen would read his column carefully before deciding whether the new bond issue was right or wrong. Housewives looked to his editorials first, then made up their minds about divorce and juvenile delinquency. So it was natural that when Clara Wentworth was brought to trial for the murder of her husband, the people of Southport quoted Dan Parcher in the discussions taking place everywhere in town while the issue was being decided in the courtroom. Dan had placed himself and the paper solidly behind Mrs. Wentworth, a fact which didn't set too well with Mr. Newell, the publisher of his paper.
Now, listen, Dan, you've had a free rein in the past. You've been allowed to say pretty much what you think. What are you leading up to? Well, it's all right for this paper to be partisan about politics and civic improvement. But it's not all right to print biased editorials on a murder case before the jury delivers the verdict.
Wait a minute, Newell. I think we'd better get this straightened out right now. The people of Southport look to me for honest opinions. My responsibility to them is to tell them what I think. And I happen to know she's innocent. Don't ask me why, I just know it. And I'm going to do everything in my power to get that jury to turn in the right verdict.
One-man jury, eh?
Call it anything you like. You can take it or leave it. Take it on those terms or get yourself a new editor.
That's a funny attitude for a guy who needs money as badly as you do.
There isn't a job big enough to keep me from saying what I believe in, Newell.
I see.
Well?
All right, Parcher. Have it your way.
Order. Proceed with the prosecution, Mr. Gresham.
Now, Mrs. Wentworth, after this argument with your husband, did you or did you not purchase a number of capsules of a sleeping drug known as ethanol at Wright's Pharmacy?
I've already told you why. I was worried and couldn't
I'm not
sleep
asking you why, Mrs. Wentworth. Did you buy them?
Yes, I did.
That's all, Mrs. Wentworth?
Yes, Mr. Parcher? Be ready in a minute. Now, let's see. The implication by Mr. Gresham that Mrs. Wentworth's desire for control over her husband's assets amounting to roughly $250,000 constituted a valid motive for his murder is a false one. Mrs. Wentworth already had control over more than half the estate. Her husband had seen to it that she never lacked funds, and the prosecution has yet to establish even with the shadow. Yeah, good. All right, son. Have him print this double column, middle page 1. This ought to bury it for keeps.
What's that, sir?
Bury it. That's an idea. Tell him to put this head on it. Epitaph for the state's case.
You are a one-man jury, aren't you, Dan? You've taken a firm stand, and the people of Southport are talking about your editorials. It seeps into the jury box, too, and in spite of the efforts of the prosecution, you can see it swaying them. It's not the case of the state versus Clara Wentworth, is it? It's the state versus Dan Parcher, and you're coming out on top. Then, on the 15th day of the trial...
Your Honor, I'd like permission to address the court.
Proceed, Mr. Gresham.
Ladies and gentlemen, my duties as district attorney, as I conceive them, are not to secure prosecutions regardless of the trend of the evidence. My first duty to the people is to see justice done. Now, it happens occasionally that this is not consistent with my position as prosecutor. Last night, facts became available to my office, which indicate clearly that the entire edifice of the state's case against Clara Wentworth was built on a false premise. Your Honor, it is the prosecution's wish at this point to dismiss charges against the defendant.
Order in the court. Order. What is the wish of the defense?
The defense, sir, refuses to accept dismissal of charges.
Order.
Your Honor, dismissal of charges by the prosecution does not constitute acquittal in the eyes of the community. It does not offer the defendant any assurance that new charges will not be brought against her at a later date. For those reasons, the defense requests a jury verdict.
You have heard the request of the defense, Mr. Gresham.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution rests.
Defense?
The defense rests.
Members of the jury, under the circumstances, any remarks I might have regarding your deliberations are superfluous. There will be a 5-minute recess while you reach a verdict. Order. Will the defendant please rise and face the jury? Mr. Foreman, will you read the verdict?
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
Pardon me. Excuse me,
Hey,
please.
nice going, Dan.
Hello, Ed. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thanks,
Pardon me, please.
I
Let me
know
through
it's
here.
over, but I just can't
I'd like to sit down here, please. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Hello.
you're Mr. Parcher, aren't you?
Yes. May I congratulate you, Mrs. Wentworth?
Thank you, Mr. Parcher. It meant so much to have you on my side.
Hey, ain't you two ever been introduced?
I don't think it's necessary, Ann.
Oh, Mrs. Wentworth, this is Dan Parcher, smartest man in Southport, if I'm any judge.
You don't have to tell me.
Ed, do you mind? I'd like to see Mrs. Wentworth alone for a moment.
Oh, sure. Just run along. You must have a lot to talk about.
Thanks. This way. The anteroom here.
Dan.
Clara, darling.
When can we tell them?
Not for a while yet, dear. We've got to take our time now.
October 22nd, 1945, The Whistler on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you can get both, why not? Especially when it comes to health care. And that's MediShare. You get both. The typical family saves $500 a month switching to MediShare. And that's huge. But it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. It's because MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge PPO network, so yeah, really, you could save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. If you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number you need. Call 833-34-BIBLE. That's 833-34-BIBLE. 833-34-BIBLE.
There were 2 attempts to form East Coast broadcasts of The Whistler. Summer series in 1946, sponsored by Campbell's Soup, and from March of 1947 to September of 1948, Household Finance. But the show ran on the West Coast of the United States from 1942 until 1955, primarily sponsored by the West Coast gasoline chain Signal Oil. More of The Whistler, October 22nd, 1945.
Well, Dan, you made an eloquent case for Clara Wentworth, didn't you? Once again, the citizens are patting you on the back, telling each other that because of Dan Parcher, justice came out on top. But there was more to it than that, wasn't there, Dan? Quite a bit more. As the months go by, you and Clara see each other more frequently. Then, a short out-of-town trip, and you and Clara were man and wife. It was on one of those first few days at home that District Attorney Gresham dropped in for dinner.
Clara, you know, I think that as DAs go, Gresham isn't so bad.
Oh, don't carry this too far, Dan.
I'm serious. How about it, Clara?
I think you're right.
Drink on it?
Sure, I'll drink on it.
Skull.
Skull.
Ah, thanks. It's at times like this that I realize what an ugly job I have.
It's all water under the bridge now. Right, Clara?
Of course.
I have a wonderful husband, Mrs. Parcher.
Oh, yes. I don't believe I could have stood it without him.
Oh, come now, Clara.
No, it's true, Dan. You know, Mr. Gresham, it wasn't what he said or wrote, or what the people who read his articles thought that kept me going. It was the feeling that there was a newspaper man named Dan Parcher who had faith in me, who believed me when I said I was innocent, who was willing to stake his reputation on it. You know, Mr. Gresham, if it hadn't been for that, I believe I would have killed myself.
You're pretty important to her now, aren't you, Dan? She's right. You did risk your career when you defended her, and you risked even more when you married her. But there was something more important at stake, wasn't there? She loves you. You realize it more and more during those first few days in town. And then on the following week, you managed to get away for a few days at your summer cabin at the lake. Clara is thrilled.
Oh, Dan, look at the lake with the moon on it.
Yeah. Nice, eh?
I don't want there ever to be anything but just this, Dan. Just you and I and summer evenings here at the lake.
You're happy, aren't you, Clara?
I never thought anything could be as beautiful as this, Dan.
Do you ever think of Walter?
Walter? Why do you ask?
I just wondered.
It's hard to believe he ever existed, Dan. I'm glad you mentioned it, though. We haven't decided about the money.
Well, what do you want to do with it?
Well, it's a part of Walter. The only part left.
I know.
As long as I have it, I'll feel he's part of our marriage somehow. I want to give it away, Dan. There's so many good things I could do with it.
Well, that's going to take a little thought.
Well, of course. I want to settle it soon, though. By the way, did I ever tell you how much I love you?
You scare me sometimes.
Scare you?
You didn't really mean what you told the DA, did you?
About you?
Yeah.
I'll say it again, dear. If ever I thought you didn't believe in me, if you doubted me or lost your faith, there wouldn't be anything else to live for.
If I doubted you?
What's the matter?
Nothing. Come on. Let's go to bed.
It's made you think, hasn't it, Dan? This woman you married, tried for the murder of her husband, said she'd kill herself if you lost faith in her. Why are you so nervous, Dan? Why can't you sleep? Are you sorry now that you appointed yourself a one-man jury in the case of the state versus Clara Wentworth?
Clara! Clara, darling.
Well, what's the matter?
Clara, what in the world were you dreaming about?
Well, I don't know. Dan, tell me what's the matter.
Nothing, Clara, nothing.
Something's wrong.
Please, forget about it.
Dan!
I said forget about it.
Dan, if you'll build a fire in the dining room, I think we can have some lunch.
I'm not hungry.
You didn't eat breakfast, dear.
I said I'm not hungry, Clara.
Dan, tell me, what is the matter?
I don't know.
Did I say something awful in my sleep?
Yes.
What?
Please, Clara, can't we just forget it for the moment? I'd rather not say anything. It was probably just a... Oh, I don't know. Let's forget it.
But, Dan, it can't be anything serious. Can't you see?
Please, Clara.
Very well, Dan. Come on and fix the fire.
Well, Well, Dan, it's getting it down, isn't it? Dan Parcher, champion of justice, upholder of the right. That's a laugh, isn't it? You've given up trying to shut it out of your mind. It's there now, all the time. The next night is the same. More thinking, more worrying. Then soon after Clara drops off to sleep.
Clara, wake up.
Dan. Oh, Dan, tell me, what did I say?
I can't believe it.
Tell me.
It was the same as last night. Something about goodbye, Walter, and then a lot of things I couldn't make out, and then a single word. Palanol.
Palanol? How could I?
Clara, Palanol killed your husband. That's what he died from.
Dan, I can't understand. You've got to believe me.
I don't know what to think.
Why are you getting up?
I can't sleep anymore. I'm going to walk around a while.
Let me go with you.
No, stay here, please. I'd rather be alone.
Hey, don't you believe me?
I don't know.
Oh, please, Dan. Please.
I'm sorry, Clara.
Why did we have to go, Dan? We have 2 more days.
I know, but it won't hurt to get back to town a little early.
Oh, and I thought it was going to be so beautiful. Just the 2 of us, the lake all to ourselves. Why did you have to spoil it, Dan?
I didn't spoil it, Clara.
But it's so silly, don't you see? All this fuss about nothing.
Let's not discuss it, Clara. Oh, here we are.
Why are we stopping?
Thought we could pick up a sandwich. I'm starved.
But, Dan, I just offered you breakfast and you said you weren't hungry.
That was an hour ago. Come on.
Dan, you didn't eat yesterday either. You're afraid, aren't you, Dan? You're afraid I'll poison you.
Oh, Clara, don't be silly.
That's what it is, isn't it? Do you see what you're doing, Dan? The trial's over. I was acquitted. The world found me innocent. But it doesn't mean anything if you don't believe it. What can I do, Dan? What can I say? The only one who counts is you, don't you see?
I'm sorry, Clara. I've tried. That's all I can tell you. I'm sorry.
You've brought it out in the open now, haven't you, Dan? There's nothing you can do now but watch her. Watch her carefully every moment you're with her. You've given up eating at home, of course. That was point number 1. And you've taken a new interest in the notebooks you kept on the trial. Every evening you get them out and go over them carefully, examining, analyzing, making new notes.
Dan, I wish you wouldn't do that anymore.
Oh, all right. I'll take them up to my room.
How can you sit there, Dan? How can you sit there and drag everything out on a marble slab all over again? Don't my feelings mean anything to you?
I'm sorry, Clara.
Is that all you can say? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's all I've heard for weeks. It's all over between us, isn't it? You're convinced that I killed Walter Wentworth.
Clara, above everything else, I guess I'm still just a newspaperman trying to get at the truth. I won't rest until I'm sure. Since you asked me, I'll tell you. I haven't satisfied myself that you actually killed your husband, but I am satisfied that you had more to do with it than I ever suspected. And I'm convinced that I'm in a terrible mistake in defending you the way I did.
I see. It is gone, then, isn't it?
I'm afraid it is.
Oh.
Clara, what are you doing?
Burning some trash.
Trash? Well, they're my trial notebooks.
All right, what about it?
You haven't any right to...
Oh, haven't I? If you think I'm going to sit here night after night while you pore over those horrible things...
You're not doing your case any good, Clara.
So I'm on trial again. I wish I were on trial. I wish I could drag the whole miserable thing out in the air again and force you to admit you're wrong.
And I wish I were wrong.
Do you?
Of course I do.
Oh, Dan.
Unfortunately, I'm right. You killed him. You poisoned him. And you'd kill me right now if I gave you the chance, wouldn't you?
Oh, Dan, you don't know what you're saying.
Oh, yes, I do. And don't think it's easy laying it on the line this way. I loved you once. But I guess I was just in love with an idea, a crazy daydream about an innocent woman who needed someone to fight the good fight. When it's over, Clara, it's all gone. There's nothing left. Goodbye, Clara.
Dan Parcher to see you, Mr. Gresham.
Oh, send him in. Wonder what Dan wants. Hello, Dan.
Oh, D.A.
What's the matter? You got something in your mind?
It's Clara.
Oh?
Yes. I made an awful mistake, Gresham. I just had it out with him.
Had it out? I don't get it.
She was guilty, Gresham.
What?
I'm as sure of it as if I'd seen her do it.
Oh, that's a pretty serious statement, Dan. How are you so sure?
It was something she said in her sleep.
Yeah?
I couldn't understand all of it. It happened 2 nights in a row. There was a lot of unintelligible muttering, and then something like, "Goodbye, Walter," followed by the single word, Palinol.
Palinol, huh?
Yes.
You're sure about that?
Positive. There were other things, of course.
I see. Mm-hmm.
I love her, Gresham. But there's something bigger involved here. We've got to do something about it.
I'm awfully sorry, Dan.
What do you mean?
We can't do anything. She's been acquitted, and she can never be brought to trial again for the same offense.
You mean I'm supposed to go on living with a poisoner?
There isn't a thing you can do. Did you discuss this with her, Dan?
Yes.
I remember something she said, something to the effect that she'd rather die than go on knowing you didn't believe in her. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And still you discussed your feeling with her?
I couldn't hide it. I was afraid to eat. I could see a new purpose in everything she did.
And the conclusion of The Whistler, October 22nd, 1945, follows these messages on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion of The Whistler, October 22nd, 1945.
You are a crusader, aren't you, Dan?
I can't help it. That's just the way I'm put together.
Okay. You'll have to handle this your own way. We can't do a thing.
It's a problem, isn't it, Dan? You walk all the way home from the DA's office thinking about it, taking plenty of time. You knew what he'd say before you went there, didn't you? You accomplished one thing anyway, though. He knows about it now. You walk on and on, thinking, trying to see the thing clearly. Then you decide. The only thing that matters is whether Clara lives or dies. You wait an hour or 2 longer, giving her plenty of time to make good on her promise. 5 o'clock. If she has the nerve, it's all over now. If she hasn't, you'll have to take the other way.
Oh. Hello.
Hello.
Well, what's this? Why are you packing?
I'm leaving. What did you expect?
Leaving?
There's nothing left to keep me here. I'm sorry you're early. I'd hoped to be gone when you arrived.
Don't be silly, Clara. There's no place for you to go.
Anything's better than this.
Well, I wish you a lot of luck.
Thanks. Same to you, Dan.
Drink on it?
Sure, I'll drink on it.
Here you are.
Thanks.
Skull.
Skull. Dan.
What's the matter?
I don't know. I'm getting dizzy. I'm so sleepy, Dan.
Sure you're sleepy. Just lie down on the bed.
You don't need an alibi, do you, Dan? Palinol acts slowly. They'll never be able to state definitely when it was taken. And there are no slips. You unpack her bags, put things away. Yes, Dan, the books are balanced now, and you feel easier. You'll be back at the Evening Bulletin tomorrow, battling for justice again. This time with nothing hanging over your head.
Dan. Dan.
Yes?
Dan, Oh.
Goodbye, Clara.
Well, Dan, the one-man jury turned in a conviction, didn't it? The champion of justice came through again, this time by taking the law into his own hands. Or was that the real reason? Was there something deeper and more sordid behind it all? Was it something else that made you cultivate Clara Wentworth and rise to her defense, win the fight for her, then make her fall in love with you? You have a strange mind, haven't you, Dan? Full of conflicting elements. Idealism on one side, hypocrisy on the other. It's all pretty tangled, isn't it? You spend the evening of Clara's death in a barroom on 3rd Street thinking. You feel better at a time like this with people around you. Then at 9:30 that night, you look in the mirror behind the bar, and you jump when you see the DA standing behind you.
Come on, Dan.
What? Well, what's the matter?
Let's go.
Where?
Let's go up to your house. I want you to see your wife.
Well, what's the matter? Is something wrong?
You better save it until we get there.
Welcome home, Dan.
Clara.
Surprised?
Why, no.
How is she, Doc?
She's still a little drowsy, but we got rid of most of it, though.
You say you're not surprised, Dan?
I don't have anything to say.
Well, I do, brother. I've got plenty to say. But before I go into that, there's something personal. This may cost me my job, Mr. Potcher, but it'll be worth it. You low-down, hypocritical rat. I've got a decent respect for an ordinary crook, but you haven't got the pride of a carnival pickpocket. Get up. I said get up.
Yeah.
I thought there were limits to what a man would do for money. I guess there aren't. We have the complete picture, Mr. Parcher, from the time you met Clara Wentworth until you tried to kill her because she was going to give the money away. We knew she didn't kill her husband. That's why we conceded the trial, and not because of your false front editorials. You see, we made a mistake. We thought he was poisoned by ethanol. 2 weeks into the trial, and the surgeon tells us he was wrong. It was paranol with the same kind of symptoms.
Where does that get you?
This far. It's hard to buy that drug. Clara Wentworth couldn't have bought it.
Wait a minute.
Shut up. When the surgeon told me it was Paranol, he knew about it. I knew about it, and the murderer knew about it. That's all. How did you know about it, Mr. Parcher?
Why,
When you came to my office, you should have known that sleep-talking yarn wouldn't hold water. Your wife couldn't have said it because she'd never heard of it in her life.
Listen, you can't...
I'm not finished. There was one piece of evidence we didn't reveal at the trial. The poison bottle we found in the fish pond. It was bought and signed for in Philadelphia by a Mr. Jeffries. This afternoon, I find that you and Mr. Jeffries have the same handwriting. All right, what's the answer to that one?
There isn't any.
Congratulations. That's the first honest statement you ever made. It wasn't worth it, Parcher. Not even for Wentworth's $250,000. Come on. You're going to write an editorial. One that starts out, I, Danforth Parcher, of my own free will and volition, you know. Look great in the middle of page 1. We'll title it Epitaph for a Heel. Next Monday at 9 o'clock, the Whistler will bring you another strange tale.
October 22nd, 1945, The Whistler on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of the soap opera Claudia, October 22nd, 1948.
And now, Claudia.
Oh, drat. More people bother you in the country than in the city.
Well, people have more time for it.
Really, the world can be too much with you. Such a wonderful morning we were going to be really alone all day.
Probably isn't anybody.
Nobody doesn't ring like that. You go out and get rid of them, darling.
You go out and get rid of them faster.
Oh.
Tucker here.
I love that old man, but I'd love him more some other day.
Hello? Any Nortons around?
We're in here in the living room, Mr. Tucker. Come on in.
Ah. Hello there, you young folks.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I don't want you two to think I was just passing by. I'm not the idly kind of man just to be dropping in. I like my privacy. I like others to respect it. Of course, that doesn't apply to good neighbors and young people like you. You'd be welcome to drop in on me any time you like.
Well, we want you to feel that way about the Nortons place, too, Mr. Tucker.
But this morning I dropped by a purpose. What be you going to do?
What be we going to do about what?
About your barn.
About our barn?
Yep.
Well, the barn is just finished.
And I want to thank you for all the help you were while I was in the hospital.
Oh, shucks, 'twasn't nothing. I'd have did it for anybody, if I liked 'em well enough. But speaking about the barn, it's finished, but it's empty.
Well, we've got some...
I know. You got my sow Ruby, and one rooster can be heard bellering all over the county, but you didn't build yourself that barn and put in fancy mail order stanchions for them. So, for all practical purposes, your barn's empty.
Well, I thought I'd wait a little while.
You got a man, you got a barn, you got a yen to have a cow. When you can get a good cow, that's the time to get her. Time and cows wait for no man, like the old saying goes.
The old saying goes, time and tide.
Yes, for seafaring men. For farmers, it's time and cows. Now, what kind of a cow you young folks aiming to have yourselves?
Well, just a cow.
Just a cow?
Yep.
It's no cow at all. Some of 'em ain't even good for hamburger.
Oh, we don't want hamburger. We want milk.
All of 'em give milk. Most of 'em give less than you think they're going to when you buy 'em.
Claudia, Mr. Tucker was asking what breed of cow we wanted.
Oh, you mean black cows or brown cows?
Black or brown or red or brindle or sky blue pink. It ain't the color. It's the breed that counts. Guernsey, Holstein, Jersey, Brown Swiss, Ayrshire.
It's an awful lot of names. I think we really wanted just a cow.
Mr. Tucker, I'm afraid Claudia is something of a city girl when it comes to cows. I agree with you. When it comes to cows, the first thing is to decide the breed. Now, I sort of thought that we'd like to...
You made an excellent choice, son, an excellent choice. Yep, an excellent choice. It's a fine breed adapted to our New England country, they be, just like they was bred for it.
Well,
good foragers, too. Make the most milk out of the least feed they do. Lots of butter fat, none of your pale, blue, thin milk out of them. They're gentle, too, gentle, and intelligent.
Yeah.
Can't have too much intelligence in the cow, you can't. No.
Mr. Tucker, you neglected to mention just what breed it is that I decided I want.
Why, Jersey, son, Jerseys. There ain't no other breed you'd want, no, Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. I just thought it'd be nice to know. I grew up with Guernseys.
And got 'em out of your system. Good. Now you want Jerseys. You made a good choice, son.
It sort of looks as if the choice had been made for us, Mr. Tucker.
Of course, if you hadn't wanted Jerseys, there wouldn't have been no point in my talking to you. But since it is Jerseys or nothing, I'll come to the hub of why I'm here.
Mr. Tucker, you wouldn't misunderstand if I ask you one question, would you?
Misunderstand? No. Fire away, son.
Do you keep Jersey cows?
What other kind would I be keeping?
And you want to sell us one of yours, Mr. Tucker? Nothing would make David and me happier than to own one of your cows.
Well, it's a happiness you'll have to defer, young lady. Sell my Susie or my Nell. I'd a sight sooner sell my sister Delilah. Sight sooner. Yes, sir. Of course, I could replace Susie or Nell, and I couldn't replace my sister Delilah, but don't know as I'd care to. She pesters the daylights out of me. Mr. Norton, as females go, cows is superior.
That is a philosophy which I hope David is never brought to.
Women drive men to it if they're not smart. You look smart, Mrs. Norton. Hope you're as smart as you look.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. That is one of the nicest compliments ever paid to me.
And if a cow is that important, Mr. Tucker, I can see why the relationship of owning one, like matrimony, is not lightly to be entered upon.
Son, there's a lot about cows you haven't learned yet. I suppose you two think of cow when you think of her. The only thing you think of is milk, eh?
Well, it's sort of the first thing you think of.
Yep. Got a lot to learn. Without cows, the land ain't got no balance. Cows give a lot besides milk. They give nice clover fields, pretty posies, and saves you from buying stuff. It's your own. It ain't stuff you got to go off and buy at outrageous prices, you know.
Well, frankly, I hadn't been thinking about cows from that angle.
And that ain't all. You never got just one cow. They keep coming regular as clockwork. If you're lucky and they ain't bull calves, you can count that clear profit just like dividend from an investment. It's always been a wonder to me a man would put his money into Wall Street when he can put it in a cow.
Well, there are varying opinions about the profit. Some people say
some people say it costs more than you get from them. But folks that say that ain't counting the value of health and human happiness.
I suppose not.
It's a sorry bookkeeping system that don't have columns for health and human happiness. Most of the real profits of life is in them two columns.
Yes.
Delicate question. You two young'uns had your first fight yet?
Well, as two normal young people,
We have never had a fight.
Watch yourself. You'll be having your first fight about not having one.
You mean if David and I have a fight, instead of turning to another woman for sympathy, you'll just go out to the barn?
And nuzzle my head against our Jersey cow and say, my wife doesn't understand me.
Words to that effect, son. Words to that effect. Yes, there's peace and understanding in a cow's eyes. There is. She's placid. She don't talk back. And she smells all sweet and clovery-like. And on a winter morning, her breath is all steamy-like. She never nags. Son, there's nothing like a cow. Your life ain't complete until you got a cow.
You haven't by any chance got a particular cow without whom you, or should I say which, David's life won't be complete, have you, Mr. Tucker?
Well, that I have, ma'am, that I have. She's right near home, she is, too. Wouldn't even have to truck her, just drive her across your pasture.
Well, what are we waiting for? Where is this bovine paragon?
Well, don't know exactly where. She's somewhere in Matthew Warren's pasture lot this minute. Don't know where.
Matthew Warren? You mean our neighbor?
The same.
Well, if Mr. Warren wants to sell a cow, why don't we go over and see it?
Hold your horses, son. Hold your horses.
Horses now, but we're not interested in horses. We just want a cow.
Now, look here, young lady. Buying a cow's nothing to get fractious or comical about. You buy her and she's yours. You live with her for the rest of your natural life.
But if Mr. Warren wants to sell a cow, it's only natural
There
that
ain't
we...
nothing natural about it. Who said Matthew Warren wants to sell a cow?
Well, you just got finished saying that he wanted
No such thing, I said. No such thing. Matthew Warren's going to sell a cow, and you're going to buy it. But Matthew Warren, he don't know nothing about it. What's more, he's got his mind made up. He ain't going to sell no cows.
Well, and what's all the talking about?
Cows.
It all sounds very complicated.
Of course it's complicated. Buying cows is always complicated. There'd be nothing simple about it. It's sort of, well, you could call it fine art. That's what it is. It's a fine art.
This is all beyond me.
And I must confess that I'm way behind you, Mr. Tucker.
Now, look, you two, it's really simple. Really simple it is. If you was to go over to Warren and say, Mr. Warren, we want to buy one of your cows, the whole deal would be shut. Done and finished it'd be.
Why, if he wants to sell it...
Son, he don't want to sell no cow.
Oh.
So confounded simple, I don't know why you two can't get it through your heads.
It's perfectly simple to me. We want to buy a cow. Matthew Warren wants to sell a cow. Only Matthew Warren doesn't know he wants to sell a cow.
Miss Norton, you're a country girl at heart. You understand me plain and right off. Good.
Well, I'm just a city boy. Bring me in out of the dark, will you?
Perfectly simple. Perfectly
Plain as your nose onto your face. Matthew Warren loves his cows. His jerseys are the finest in the state, finest in the county, maybe. Take prizes every year at the Danbury Fair.
Well, I'm with you that far.
Well, he loves his jerseys so much he don't like to sell them.
Mr. Tucker, stop right there. Now, that's the point that I jumped off the track.
Well, it's simple. Warren don't want to sell his cows. His herd grows. But this is the crux of the situation. His farm don't grow, so there you are.
Well, now, take me along just one step farther, Mr. Tucker, and I might know where I am.
Oh, herd large, farm small. Wet weather good for hay, too much wet weather bad for hay. So last evening, Matthew comes to me and says, Jared, I'm short of feed for this winter. You cut more hay than you need. Could I buy some off it, he says.
And you've got more than you need?
Dang tootin' I have. Never going to catch Jared Tucker short of feed, no, sir. So you got yourselves a chance to buy a good Jersey cow.
Mr. Tucker, I think I'm off the track again.
Yes, if you've got extra hay and a neighbor needs hay...
You and Mr. Norton are my neighbors, too. Warren's got a lot of cows. 'Twon't hurt him to have one less. Do you a lot of good to have one more. I'm just the
Deus Ex Machina.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
The duck's in the machine that pulls the strings.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, if I was to advise you, which I ain't, I would advise you to let a couple of days pass.
Let a couple days go by. Yeah.
And I'll dingle-dangle Warren along and finally tell him he don't get none of my hay, see?
He doesn't get any at all.
Then along about Monday, he's in the right mood, the iron's hot, you buy yourselves a cow.
It doesn't sound exactly honest to me.
Well, it's cow trading that's as honest as most. I'll go along with you on Monday.
And it sounds awfully complicated, too, Mr. Tucker.
Now, wait a minute, Mr. Tucker. I just want to be sure that I have it straight. Now, we're going over and see Matthew Warren on Monday.
Yes,
and if he's in the right mood, and you haven't sold him any hay, well, then we can buy the cow. Is that right?
Oh, dang it all, Mr. and Mrs. Norton. Of course, this is all complicated. Yankee trading wouldn't be no fun if it wasn't complicated. Getting married sometimes complicated.
It's fun, though.
Stop interrupting, girl. Having a baby's sometimes complicated. But, sometimes living's complicated. But buying a cow is always complicated. It's fun, too.
As you stop in the food store or drugstore for the family needs, you'll notice the red cooler that invites you to pause and refresh with ice-cold Coca-Cola. Step up, drop a nickel in the slot, and shop refreshed. That delicious refreshment will remind you to take a carton of Coke home for the family, too.
Hi there, Mr. King. Are you a Yankee?
Am I a what? Them shooting words where I come from.
Might have known from your voice you wasn't no Yankee, but I'll wager you was born close to a farm. You ever done any cow trading, son?
Now, you wouldn't be trying to sell me a cow, would you, Jared?
You in the market for one? No, I guess you're not. But I've been having a time with these here Norton friends of yours. They're babes in the woods.
You still talking about cows?
Well, they depend on me like I was their grandpa. Nothing to do, but I have to go along with them to buy a cow on Monday. If I don't go, Matthew Warren will skin the eyes off them.
Is Matthew Warren selling them a cow?
Well, he is, but he don't know it yet.
Well, so long, Jared. I have a notion, a Yankee notion, that is, that I'm going to see some Yankee trading on Monday. Every day, Monday through Friday, Claudia comes to you transcribed with the best wishes of your friendly neighbor who bottles Coca-Cola. So listen again Monday at the same time. And now this is Joe King saying au revoir.
October 22nd, 1948, Claudia on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting. You can contact me there as well. You can find our social media links, and you can also buy me a coffee. That helps us acquire additional great classic radio collections for us to bring you here on your favorite station. Thank this station, support their advertisers, tell your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.